In the previous episode of the Zista podcast, we were focusing on augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. Today, we're continuing the conversation with Sathyapriyan S, co-founder at Madras MindWorks. Welcome to the Zista podcast, where we invite industry professionals and academicians to answer questions that students have within a particular subject area. Let's go straight into the session. Hi Satya, thank you for joining us once again on the Zista podcast and continuing the conversation on AR, VR and MR.
Thank you.
Satya, I'm really keen to ask you something about work experience. Now, many times we may graduate, we may take up a job, right? And I'm already working in another domain, for example, as a student. But heart of hearts, I really want to build a career in AR and VR. Let's say I'm a student who has no prior experience, yet I want to enter this industry. What would be your advice to students like that?
I think this generation, especially for AR/VR, is the luckiest generation because people with experience are not existing in this domain. Because this domain itself is so new. So which means the existing experience may be related to software, maybe related to games, and people are pivoting from those domains. The experienced candidates are themselves pivoting into these new domains.
Right.
It's all the more useful for students to start with this domain because this has a huge potential. Of course, they can learn all the other traditional domains like the game design as they go.
And let me ask you a question. Since we talked about people pivoting from another domain to AR and VR, having worked in AR and VR, is it possible for professionals in this space to pivot to other industries?
Yeah, very much. Because this is going to be for example, like if you take the 3D design, 3D
Right.
modeling, which is the digital modeling space, animation, movies, and all these space, what happens is the workflow is going to be similar. In fact, in AR, VR, we are going to have even more tougher workflow. So once they get used to all these here, it's going to be much easier to pivot there.
Okay, all right. And I think it makes a lot of sense. The last time we connected, we were talking about this concept called the interaction map, where you try and define what a person does in a virtual environment and interacts with, objects within that virtual environment. So is everything, designed to the nth level? Let's say, for example, in the context of a game, when you're designing, when you're storyboarding a game, you're being very clear that, okay, if a certain action is taken, this is the impact or the ramification in the game world. So the same concept applies in the case of VR as well?
Absolutely, yes. So the same interaction map is going to be the same that is available in the game. In fact, in the game design, we have something called as a mother document, which is called the GDD, game design document.
Right.
We have whatever is the AR technology design document is available here. Most of it is borrowed from game design documents. And there are some components which are not relevant. See, because games are made only for the entertainment purpose. Here we have a lot of serious applications. So only those additions and alterations are required when we work on.
All right. Now, in the last episode, we had actually talked about what are the different skill sets that people require, what kind of educational background students need. But I'm sure there are a lot of skills which may be non-technical in nature, maybe some of the softer skills. So as someone who's doing well in this space, I'd love to hear from you on maybe what are some of the important non-technical skills that can help a person do well in the AR and VR domain.
See, creativity is going to be the most useful skill. At least this technology has the scope to give you the power to try out most of the creative things. The other thing that may be required is trying to be multi-skilled, right? There are a lot of multi-skilled people who are unable to use put use of all their skills into a particular domain. Maybe some other skills are not useful in some of the domains. So this is one area where multi-skill will be rewarded for sure, right? And one more thing, the best thing that I can say that if you're looking at a career in AR/VR, a good AR/VR designer or a developer should have a fine balance of logic and creativity. So that's one thing that is required, right? And of course, the other things that are required in this domain are the general software development things where client handling, they're able to convince the clients, use case development. If they can go and pitch some new use case to the client, those are things that will be really added.
Sure. Have you, in the course of your work and your projects, come across instances where you've designed something, and when the client sees it, they feel that it should be done differently, but as a professional in the domain, you know that maybe what the client is suggesting is not appropriate or not correct? How do you manage a situation like that?
We face it very often. So in fact, I'll tell you an example. What happened is we started with a project, right? So we've got a lot of inputs. And the moment we are showing our first output, they are giving the input only by then. We have completed our project 90%. But they only see that it's not a fault of theirs. They are seeing it for the first time.
Sure.
Without seeing it, they will be not it will not be not possible to expect that the client will be able to imagine this is going to be the output. Then they say, okay, once they see this, they are able to realize and they are able to participate in the process. So that's what, though VR AR is going to make people more virtual, that's what we feel. But the process of VR AR is going to be so personal, right? You have to see people face to face. You have to go and interact with them, understand their body language, and see what they really mean, right? So all these things are quite required.
Right. Okay. One thing that we didn't touch upon in the last episode, and I'm hoping we can quickly touch upon it now, is that there are a lot of different workflows and processes, to make an AR and VR project come alive. And we keep talking about how AI is really helping us, acting as an enabler, as a co-pilot. Can you give us examples of instances where AI tools or technologies have helped you accelerate or perhaps perform the task that you need to perform better, faster?
See, if you ask me, AI is going to help us fuel the industry's adoption rate much higher. I'll tell you, especially the Gen AI part. See, AR, VR by itself is converging on all the domains. We spoke about the hardware getting cheaper,
right?
And the use cases are also today developing rapidly. And there are a lot of companies. When we started, maybe in India, there were only 5 companies like us. Today in Chennai, we are seeing 50 companies like us, right? So I think there's so much of supply also. The main roadblock is going to be the transition of the traditional content, right? So the example that I spoke, converting the video to a 3D. That is for us, if you ask us, we'll say, okay, it's not possible, but it's a joke for us. If people ask this, they say, then we understand that they don't know anything about AR. So that is the thing that we use it for. But if you really use Gen AI, you can really convert the video into 3D. At least you can generate a lot of content. Today, there's a scarcity of the main bottleneck of VR is the scarcity of content. How much ever you apply the manpower, it's going to take time to create the content. So you see a lot of movies, right? In spite of having so much of technology, we are unable to produce a lot of animation movies. It's no dearth of stories. It's only that, each character, if you take the Kung Fu Panda movie, each character, the whole character, 300, 400 artists sit and work. Each square inch is having some engineer sitting and working, the artist, digital artist, sketching, doing that, texturing, lighting. There are so many things. Only with that, you can get that output, right? So today, if you can use AI to kind of squeeze in this whole production process or creation process, it can really, make the adoption more rapid. I think AI is going to be more useful there.
All right. Okay. I want to ask you a very practical question. So, and I know that when you're developing a project, you're working towards a use case. Not every use case is like the previous one you may have worked on. So let's say there's a simple project, and let's say there's a highly complicated project. What is the development timeline that a client should keep in mind for a simple project versus a complex project?
See, it's very simple. what happens is the whole development time, most even for the simple and the complex project, varies in weeks. For example, if you give me a simple project, my development time is going to be 1 week. For a complex project, it's going to be 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
But if you look at the whole project charter, right? Sometimes the simple projects gets completed in 1 month, including all the input gathering and all. Sometimes the complex project takes I think 6 months, 8 months. That's primarily because of the exchanges that we have in terms of the inputs, right? It's
Back
a
and
new
forth
technology.
between you and the client.
Yeah. Input gathering, validation of inputs, making them understand, doing a lot of. So what happens is every time we are stuck, what we do is we kind of put a stop there, and then we kind of break it down into smaller POC so that the client builds confidence. That POC helps us to get us to the larger level, right? So that is one thing that we're doing it manually today. The change of human mind is going to be very tough, right? So that's what we see. But the working time is quite simple, because the moment you set the floor running, you put people on that, people are skilled and trained, you can do it much faster. That's not a problem.
All right. So now that you've given us a perspective of the timelines between, say, a simple project and a complex project, now let's add AI tools and technologies in the mix. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is going to be the help that you're going to get from AI, and how will that really shrink the timelines?
No, shrinking again there will not be a big advantage for me. I'm expecting AI to shrink my time with the customer. If I can really show him that he was using only AI, not using real resources,
Okay.
that 1 month time can be saved there, because my real time is spent there.
Right.
I believe that AI can help us in doing that. Short POCs. See, AI can never be accurate. Right? We don't expect accuracy out of AI, but still it can give a lot of options. Today so customers are stuck when they don't have options. When we give them only one option and they think maybe they're doubtful about that option, then if you are able to generate more options to the customer using AI, then it's going to solve a problem. Then the customer maybe they come back to the same option. 90% of them that happens. It's just a validation that, whatever my choice is the right choice, just checking around, right? So that we really can't beat around. If AI can help us that, wastage of time, it is really going to solve save a lot of time for us.
Sure. And it's so interesting to hear how, when you're using a project management principle, you break down a project into smaller tasks and milestones. And instead of going straight away to the final solution, you're doing a smaller POC or a proof of concept. So I'm sure it's something that you must have learned over time, that it actually makes sense to do this smaller POC first, get a buy-in from the client on the smaller POC before you go on to, say, a larger project. So it's so interesting that you're taking this approach, Satya.
No, it has come from a lot of bitter experiences that we had. See, sometimes the technology may be ready. If the user is not ready, what is the point, right? So you have to make the user also ready.
All right. Satya, I'd like to ask you about some, interesting or exciting projects that you have worked on. What are some of the most important skills that you relied on to actually let these projects come through? And, love to hear that.
See, one of the most interesting projects that we did is for the Tamil Nadu Archaeology Department.
Okay.
We did a excavation project. We never anticipated that it will turn out to be really huge. What happened is we pitched the project for a very big project. So then what the IAS officer did was he very nicely put us into that whole project and said, you develop the project and you help us in deployment, since we don't have the manpower to handle this. Okay. You also handle the event part of it. We were never into the events, right? So we've been the tech guys. Always, you give us 10 projects, we'll do that and give it to you. So the moment we went and stood in front of the stalls, 1,000 people start coming into, and we realized our own problems, that we made it a little more complicated, right? So it took us a long time. There was huge queue. We had to use police force to control them. It was so embarrassing for us to, people are wanting to see, but there is a roadblock, which is created by ourselves, which without the awareness that we should have had. So then it pushed us. It pushed us to kind of evolve it. And then that whole UX part, it initially the experience took around 1.5 minutes to even for the user to get into the core experience part. So
Sure.
which means out of the 3 minutes, half of the time is helping him to just learn the new technology, buttons, all those gadgets. We are quite used to that. We have the muscle memory. We do that. For people, when we say them use this index finger, they pause for quite some time and then they remember which is the index finger, right? So that the problem is that it's not their problem. Then we kind of evolved it so much that we got it down to 25 seconds using hand tracking.
Nice.
Then we said, so you have to kind of get the user to the experience straight away. You wear the headset, you get it on the hand, and it paid us like anything in terms of the marketing. We did this archaeological experience in Tamil Nadu. We gave it to 1.6 lakh people within a span of 10 days. It was considered one of the highest recorded in Asia in 2019.
That's
so I think
wonderful.
that is a learning on the field, I think, with the heat.
With the sun beating down on you, you're like, we got to make this snappier. Otherwise, the customers are going to get irritated. And guess what? We are suffering as well because the sun's beating down on us. Yeah, nice. Okay, I want you to kind of do some crystal ball gazing now, if it's possible, and look into the future. How do you see this technology evolving? And I know this is not an easy one to answer, but anything that you share, I'm sure will be at least help us get some sense of where we're going and what we can do.
Paradoxically, this is the easiest question that I can always take.
Okay.
See, the thing is, it'll slowly creep into everybody's life, like mobile phones creeped into us in the last 20 years.
Right.
This is going to creep into everybody's life without your own knowledge, right? I'll give you a live example. Everybody is using QR codes. Right?
Sure.
So today, left, right, and center, we are using QR codes. QR code is a little brother form of AR, right? So you add a little more, you get AR. So, right, it's already into our life. Only that, it has to find a lot of critical use cases. We've seen QR codes a lot of times, right? Even before that, people have been using it for mundane reasons, right? So the problem is the right fit of the technology. It's going to take some time. It may. So in fintech, they have found the best use case today. The Paytm kind of putting QR codes and making the payments.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You think people who don't have any knowledge of reading, writing, even counting numbers, they're transacting using QR codes. So that's the brilliant use case. So I think AR and VR will have such eureka moments as we go. But when it does, it will slowly start pushing. The one more thing that I ask is the Snapchat. People are using Snapchat when I ask this question in most of the college forums, I ask them, have you used AR before? No hands raise up. Then I ask whether, are you using Snapchat? Everybody raise up. They don't realize that the Snapchat is AR. The face filters that you get is all AR.
Absolutely.
So I think it will come into everybody's life. I think so. If it comes into everybody's life, then we have a lot of opportunities. Again, the talent supply, the people with expertise will have a lot of value. That's what we are also betting it.
Right. So what you're basically saying is the technology will have super wide adoption. It might creep up on you. And I think in the adoption of a lot of technologies, whether it is in terms of the sheer mind space that it occupies, the sheer media space and attention that comes to a technology, there's always that one killer app or that one killer use case which really helps the technology to increase rapidly, right? So, I mean, it's not that Gen AI is something which is new, but I think ChatGPT and everything thereafter, it just came so much into the mainstream thanks to ChatGPT, right? It's not that Gen AI didn't exist. And then people started thinking of, okay, if I can use Gen AI for this, let me try using Gen AI for another use case and another use case. So I agree with you. There will be that one killer app,
Absolutely.
For all you know, it might be Madras MindWorks that actually comes up with an app like that. Fantastic.
Aspirations are that.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of skills and competencies, you guys have what it takes. Absolutely.
What's Grace?
Thank you once again, Satya. It's been a fantastic discussion. There's so much I learned from you, and I've really enjoyed our interactions. I'd like to say thank you for making time and joining us on the podcast.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It was truly engaging. I forgot what the time is. So,
Truth be told, so did I. All right. I really enjoyed our discussion with Satya. What's abundantly clear that AR, VR, and MR are going to be a part of our everyday life. It's going to have applications across industries, and very clearly there's a need for qualified personnel. So pursuing a career in this space, looking at programs that can help you build a career in this space is definitely a wise move. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube to keep getting notifications as and when new content goes live. You can also tune into the podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Our handle is the Zista Podcast. This episode has been produced by the fantastic team at Zista, which includes Russell Aldridge, Udita Arana, and Tanish Shah. This is your host, Amit Ahuja, signing out. Till we meet again, stay curious.